A lot of people in Turkey, a lot of refugees, they are escaping either the war because their house were destroyed, or they're escaping the economical situation, or escaping the army. They don't want to serve in the army, not because they are afraid or because they are coward, but they don't want to fight on their own land. They would say like, I would go and fight if we are fighting an enemy, like an external enemy, but fighting against each other, it's wrong. And the road from Turkey to Europe, it's extremely dangerous. So the beginning, the problem is you have to travel, you have to cross this sea into the Greek part, and in the road a lot of people, they may get drowned. And here I'm talking about children, women, men, old people, they are drowned. There was a video when Syrians were crossing, and there was a reporter like filming the way, and there was one guy who was running with his daughter, and that reporter, she put her feet in front of him so he could triple on the way. And I don't know what happened later. I did not follow up what happened to the reporter, but it also reflects how the people are reacting. They were extremely racist towards Syrian. In fact, we are not nomads, we are not barbaric people, we are civilized, but we had to take this journey because we did not had any choice. Today I'm cooking an authentic food. It's called kufta. It's a Syrian food. So usually it should be cooked in oven, but sadly I don't have an oven, so I'm just making do with whatever I have. Also, it's in Syria common that with our French fries, we do it ourselves. So usually that's handmade, like all of them. Like I just got the potato and made all of the stuff myself. So this is usually the tradition in Syria. We cook everything ourselves. And anyway, I'm happy to be in telling you my story, which is a really long story. So this is our bread. Let me show you like a full bread. So this is half one. This is the full. So this is how we look. So this is called we call it like our bread, the Syrian bread, or the Arabic bread rather called. And I bought it here from Budapest, which took me a lot of time until I find a place which they sell it, and it took me hardship to eat with the common bread here. So the thing about our bread, it has a thin layer, as we see here, like you can see here, the thin layer here, and that's why we like it, because it will give us an advantage when we eat, because we can feel the flavor of what we eat. So as an example on how like locally or normally Syrian eat, they grab the food, they bite like this. And for example here I made some French fries with it, so I would put the fries like this, and then we'll roll it in a sandwich manner, and I can enjoy my food. Perfect. So this is one, as I told you, this is our main food, which is mainly meat, and I add parsley, onion, and some spices from my country. One of the spices I put here, I will show you later, that the 7 spices mix, which usually concluded of 7 spices. I know that cardamom is one of it. Also some, in addition to some spices, in order to enrich the flavor. So the flavor of the meat is no longer appealing too much, but rather the spices of flavor which would consume or which dominate that flavor here. Here also we can see coffee. This is an Arabic coffee, which is different from the usual coffee, because usual coffee, usually you put the coffee and then you add the hot water and you mix it, but with this one it's totally different. To make this one, you need first of all to boil the water, and then you add the coffee while it's boiling, and you move it, and then you will have the coffee which is really heavy, strong. For example, if we take an espresso or americano, it's a light coffee, and that's why I don't like it. So I asked to get coffee from my country because this one is heavier in terms of flavor. Even on the effect, it's much heavier. And when we finish, so for example, we have the small, we drink it with a small cup, not with the big one, as not with the mug, but rather a small one, similar size to if you are having a shot, the same size cup. And in the end you will find a thick layer of coffee because that's how thick it is. And usually it has also spice added to it, which is condiment. It's added to it to enrich the flavor of the coffee. So this is called the Damascus sword. It's usually a figure. It's that figure, or it's how to say, like a statue or something. I don't know how the term in English, but the thing is that you can find this in a square, a famous square in the capital called Umayyad Square, or Sahat Umayyah. Sahat Umayyad Square. So this is represent or a figure about the Damascus sword, which was one of the best sword of all times. In fact, if you're familiar with the Game of Thrones, you will find that something called Valyrian steel, and Valyrian steel, it would represent its Damascus steel. So the idea of Valyrian steel is come from the Damascus steel. So here also a figure of Syria, and here I have to send regard to my friend who brought me this stuff. So here the figure of Syria, and as we see here, that this is the main cities of Syria. So this is my city, Latakia city. As we see, it's on the coast, and Latakia city is one of the most oldest city in the world. So the oldest city in the world, it's this city, Aleppo. It's around 12,000 years old. And after it comes also this city, Damascus city, which is the oldest inhabited capital in the world. It's around 10,000 years old. And my city, it's around 5,000 years old. And it was an old time, a little bit up to the north of my city, there was a famous Phoenician city called Ugarit. And the Phoenicians are also known as the Carthaginian, who had the Punic War with the Roman, because they were based, how to say, as a colonized kingdoms, colonized empire, and they had trading centers wherever they go. So they built Carthage as a trading post, and later on Carthage prospered and eventually it had led to the war, the Punic War with the Romans, which eventually lost. So as we see, even the Carthaginian, they originate from Syria. So Syria is rather a birthplace for culture. Also, there is also this famous city, Palmyra. So this famous city, Palmyra, it was one of the most famous trading center on the Silk Road during the Roman era. Sadly, later on it became as an independent kingdom and was crushed by the Romans and destroyed. But the entire city, or the main figures in the city, like the temple, the theater, and the forum, it stand even until our day. But sadly, in the war, it was destroyed. So as we see, this called the Ark of the city, that was bombed by ISIS. It was destroyed. So now, if you go to Syria, you won't find it anymore because it was destroyed by ISIS. Also, in Deir ez-Zor, we see this bridge. It was built by the French. It's also one of the oldest bridges, like hanging bridge. But also sadly it was destroyed during the war. So a lot of the figure was destroyed. The castle, Aleppo castle, here we see it. It was damaged during the war too. Part of it fell during the war. So sadly this war has affected a lot Syria. Even though Syria is like a birthplace of culture and civilization, it's sad to say that this birthplace is now being damaged. And some of the things that you see, like Palmyra, is World Heritage. So it's the historical site. It's cited as a World Heritage, but sadly it was also destroyed by ISIS. So this is the pant. This is my pant from work when I was in Turkey. I was wearing it, and as we see here, look how much it's damaged. But I could not. I did not had enough money to buy a new one, so I was always trying to repair it over and over and over and over. It have been repaired for several times. So this is the pants I was wearing for job. So maybe as we see here, maybe you can see that the remnant or the leftover from the work For example, like here you see, it's from the work here. It was damaged from the extreme work, the labor work. Like here we can see part of oil. It's like a machine oil because of the work I was working. It was really hard for me because I am a graduate from university. I can speak Arabic and English, and I was trying to learn Turkish while I was in Turkey. So it was really feeling sad for me that with all my knowledge, with all my experience, at the point when I was in Turkey, I had 4 years experience in marketing and customer service, but yet I did not find any job. And in fact, I was not allowed to work because of my resident permit, so I had to work this kind of occasional job or this kind of labor job. Also, we can see there by the Syrian flag, and I also want to reflect to tell something about Syrian flag. So here we see the color. So the color is the red. So the red reflect the blood of the martyr or the blood of the fallen, and the white, it represents the Umayyad Caliphate, the black represent the Abbasid Caliphate, and the two stars, they are in the green color, which is represent Fatimid Caliphate, and the stars reflect to the Syria and Egypt. So my trip or my journey to Hungary was a really long journey, sadly. When the war started, my city, in the term of battles, in the term of destruction, it was not affected that much. The protests, they were protesting in my city, and it led to some kind of clash with the security or the police, and it later on escalated to maybe some exchange with fire. But the main, in my city, the main thing was here, if we look at the map. So we see in the northern part, it was controlled, in the northern part of the city, it was controlled by the rebels or the opposition. For me, I don't take sides, so I would never call them like a revolutionary, because I don't take side of the war, because that's what they created the problem in the beginning, that everyone had to take side. And if you don't take side, you are kind of traitor or a spy or something. So because of that, nobody could have evaluated in a reliable manners the situation in Syria, and nobody have seen or foreseen that we are destroying our country. So sadly, later on it happened. So this is my city, Latakia. It's, as you say, coastal city. And the situation in Latakia, if you say it now, or at least by the time I left, the war has affected the economy. So in fact, if you last month, in fact 1 month ago, I made a kind of conference where I talked about my country and the economical situation in Syria. And when I made this conference and I got the data, so the price of the dollar in the black market was around 700 lira, Syrian lira, and now if we look at the price of the dollar in the black market, it's around 1,000. So the inflation, it's hyper. The currency is dropping by day, every day it's dropping. And when I made the conference 1 month ago, my mom or my father, can say, each of them was making a salary in the euro term around 70 euro, and now it's around 55 euro per month. And in Syria you need minimum 150 euro to able stand the monthly expense. So my parents, both my mom and dad, both, they are not making enough money to sustain their living cost in Syria. So this is the situation of an average Syrian. In addition to that, the essential services are not provided. One of the problems they are suffering in Syria is the electricity. So for example, now we are here, we are enjoying electricity, but in Syria they are not having this privilege, not on 24 hours. So usually it's 3 hours where you don't have any electricity, and 3 hours you have it on. So there was, how to say, kind of they want some saving in power consumption or cut in power consumption. So the government is cutting the electricity every 3 hours for 3 hours in a row, and that's creating problems. So now, for example, it's cold outside, but we are here indoors enjoying the warm. But in Syria they don't have this advantage, because all of the kind of heating systems are relying on the electricity, which they don't have. Some other heating system there, we can say wood, diesel. So the diesel is not available in Syria, that you can stand for days in a row on a queue to get maybe around 20 liters of diesel, and that's it. And due to the war, a lot of the forests were destroyed or burned, so the government decided to not allow using of wood in the heating system, so wood is not allowed. So Syria now, inside Syria, they don't have any kind of ways to warm themselves. The only way they do it is just wearing too much clothes, which is really feeling sad, because even no matter how much clothes you wear, you will always feel cold if you don't have a heating system. So that was the situation in Syria, and because of that I decided to apply for a scholarship. Sadly, the first time I applied for a scholarship to Hungary, I applied it from Syria, but I could not get it at the first time. So I decided to increase my chances by moving to another country, which was Turkey. The thing is that we are not allowed to have any visa to Turkey, so the only way to travel is to travel illegally. I remember it as it happened yesterday. It was on the 7th of November 2017. At the morning, I moved from Latakia, and the route that we have taken, it was from Latakia to Hama, and then to Aleppo, and from Aleppo we traveled to the countryside, and we have to go to the countryside of Idlib. I pointed here, as we see, because I don't want to forget what happened there. So the situation was really hard. It was a really long trip, and on the road you can see the remnant or the left from the war. So for example, usually during the battle, the fighting sides, they make, how to say, kind of trenches, like a trench, and when you go on the road, you will see these trenches, and also you will find some building they were destroyed. I find some burnt tank or burnt car on the side of the road. So, and even though when I traveled through the battle in this area have already long over, but the problem is that they left too much to clean in a fast time. So until now you will find the remnant of the war. So the thing is that when I went to Aleppo, I was extremely surprised. As I said, that my city was not affected by the war, but Aleppo city was extremely damaged. So when I first entered the city, all the buildings, they were destroyed, like rooftops. Some buildings that they have several rooftops, they are clashed on each other. It was really sad. It was really sad to see my country like this, because Syrians are really proud people. Syria was always looked up by the other Arabic countries. So the Arabic countries are almost like 24 countries. But like, even though they are divided country, but in every other term they are one entities. As it's similar to understand it when we look at the pre-Soviet country like Kazakhstan, Russia, Azerbaijan. They all speaking Russian. They all have been part of one country, and they all speak at some point common language, which is the Russian. So all Arabic country, they speak common language, which is Arabic. And of course there is a country which are always looked up to, and it was Syria. So Syria was always looked up to. We were leading the Arabic world in several sections. One of them, it's like creating drama. So Syrian drama was #1 drama in the Arabic world. Also duplicating, so you used to duplicate from Japanese to Arabic, from Turkish to Arabic. So Syria was leading in several industry, also cotton industry, spices industry, a lot of industries Syria were leading. So to see ourselves, how are we humiliated, how we are looked down, it's so hard for us. And we were, as I mentioned before, it was civilized country. We were civilized, we were urbanized years ago, even before Europe. When Europeans were called barbaric by the Roman, we were the most civilized. We were the most civilized at the world. We have created a lot of stuff. A lot of invention today were created in Syrian ancient time. In fact, one of the things, it's the alphabet. So every language used alphabet, and the first alphabet was in history was found in Syria. So that's how deep our culture is. So to be looked down today, it's really sad for us. So to continue my story, we have traveled. So I traveled lately north of Aleppo, then start from Aleppo to the Idlib countryside until reach this point, which was called Darkush. So Darkush was the gathering point. Everyone who wanted to travel legally, they gathered at this point, at this village called Darkush. Of course, there were several other routes, but the routes I take was Darkush. So when I reached Darkush, it was almost at the evening, and also when I went to there, I was really surprised how the situation is there. So everyone is armed, and this area is controlled by Jabhat al-Nusra, which they are relating to Al-Qaeda. So I was always in fear. Everyone there is afraid, even though they are, like, how to say, a lot of them, they are against the government, but also they are not satisfied of their ruling, of the people who are ruling them, because Syria was never an extremist. We were never an extremist people. We were always moderate. We were always liberal people. So to see those people who are related to Al-Qaeda, who are forcing us to follow things that we are not used to, it's really also sad for us. And we cannot say anything, because at least when you say anything against the government, you will be arrested. But there, you will be killed immediately, sometimes on the spot. So the situation there, it's really, really dangerous. It's really scary. And it's sad to say that the people, when they started protesting, they were asking for freedom. And when the other side, which is the rebels, which is, they call themselves the revolutionary, they never provided the freedom. So either you're with us or you're dead. No option. So it's the same now. Syrians are really feeling hopeless. They lost all hope, because if they look, both sides are the same, equally the same. No one is better. Everything is bad. Situation is bad. Economy is bad. And what makes us really feel sad that the world has abandoned us. So they have been watching, and like, let's say the first world, or what they call the people of the freedom, protector of the freedom, United States, European country, they did nothing. In fact, they are making the life of the Syrians more difficult. And they always say that we vie for freedom, we vie for human rights, but we have seen nothing. It has proven us it was all lies. And it really feels sad that years ago that those people, or the European, they fought against the German, the Nazi Germany, for freedom, and now they are not able to defend the same freedom they fought for. So it's really feeling sad for us. So to continue my story, we at the first day I arrived at the evening, as I said, and I have slept. So the next day they took me to a meeting or a gathering point, which usually it's a house, and that house was located immediately on the fence between the Syrian and the Turkish border. So when I was looking, I was able to see the fence, and at night I can see the lights of the border between Syria and Turkey. So at the sunset, a person came and asking who are traveling with that guy. I forgot, to be honest, his name. I remember his Asmar. That's all I remember. So we said, like, who was traveling, and I did not know at the beginning that that was the guy I work with, but say, like, me. So they put us in a car, and the car windows were all black, so I could not see anything outside. I was only feeling that the car is moving until the car stopped and the door was open. So when the door was opened, someone who's wearing those black cover looked at us and started counting. And prior to this point, the driver asked us to separate. So the women were sitting on one side and the men were sitting on the other, because those are extremists. So if we sit even close to each other, not with each other, but close to each other, that might cause us a problem, and who knows what they might do. So the thing that they opened, and he started counting, and then we continue moving. Before I arrive, also, it's notable to say that before I arrived to here to Idlib, I was passing through checkpoints. So all the way from Latakia to this point, to Darkush, I was passing through checkpoint. The beginning were checkpoint for the government or the army, but at the northern part of Aleppo. So when I was, like, in the northern part, I went through this side. So the checkpoint, I served the last checkpoint for the government, and then went through a checkpoint to the Kurdish forces. At that point, 2 years ago, the Kurdish forces were still there, but now I heard that they were defeated and they were, how to say, driven out of this area. So after that, I passed through the checkpoint of the Kurdish forces. Then I started driving through the Kurdish area until I reached the one checkpoint for the government, for the Jabhat al-Nusra. So when I reached this point, one of the soldier, or I don't know what they are, one of these people who were guarding this checkpoint was looking at the driver document. So when he saw my document, he saw that I am coming from the Latakia city, and Latakia is known for being supportive for the regime or for the government. So he came to my side and said, hey, did you serve in the army? I said not, because according to Syrian law, if you don't have any male brother, you don't have to serve in the army. But he said that your document says that you had only I'd say exception until 2015. I said that, okay, but this exception is a lifetime exception. So he looked again at the paper, then he gave me and let me pass. So in fact, it was a really scary moment, because as I said before, we don't know how they think. So back to my travel, back to my trip. At the late night, we reached what we called the camp. So the camp is where all of the people who want to travel, they gather at this camp. It contains some small people who are selling products like water, like vegetable, fruit to eat on the road. They don't sell too much. So we gathered, and there was the guides. We call it the Lila in Arabic. They are the guides which they will show us the way. So they were always like running through the people. They are gathering them, and they started gathering up in a line. So we were in a huge line of people, around 40%. And among of these people, they were Iraqis, and there were a lot of children crying. So when we started moving, because of the children crying, the security or the border guard of Turkish the forces or the Turkish side, they start feeling something, and the guys had to send us back. The thing is about the guide that they are the people in power, and they know that, and they execute this power in a really horrible manner. So they were shouting on people, they were cursing people, they were insulting the people, but we cannot do anything because they are in the position of power. So later on, after they drove us back, they were having some kind of argument among themselves, and they decided that this woman, and they pointed at me, and they continue pointing, those are good, but the other are horrible. So they kept arguing, and they decided that the people who were picked, they want to try to reach. So they asked her, do you want to try, give it a try? I would say yes. I did not want to spend any single extra day in that area in Idlib, so I wanted to try. So it was at this point when we were talking, it was around 12 midnight, and it said, okay, we will give it a try, but we have to wait until the situation calmed down a little bit. Of course, I have to note that in the entire period here, we can hear the live ammo shooting. Even if we look to the sky, we can see that the bullets are flying. If you look at it, look like a shooting star. But sadly, it's not a shooting star, it's a bullet, and if it is up, at least you know that it's not pointed on your direction. But sometimes we hear the shooting and we cannot see the bullet, which means that it's on target, it's trying to hit a target. And actually a lot of people, they die or they get shot during this trip because it's extremely dangerous. So at midnight we had to wait, and I have to wait 2 hours, and I was wearing exactly the same clothes I'm wearing now. I was wearing this shirt with this trouser, and I choose them because they are warm, so they can keep me warm during because it was winter, as I said before. It was during 7th of November. At this date when I was traveling, it was 8th of November. It was the next day when I was staying, so it was really cold. So I was wearing those clothes in addition to a jacket. And in fact, if you look to the pant here, you will find some spot, this brown point. This one, it was during the road. I think I hit something and or splashed something, so it left this mark, and even though I tried to clean it a lot, it never removed. So this one from the trip, this is the leftover from the trip, because the entire road was muddy. So for example, sometimes we were like walking, and all of a sudden we might slip, and at this point in sleep it's dangerous because it might alert the guard, and also it might break some of our bones because it's like a mountain road. It's not, how to say, a flat, it's a mountainous road, so it's extremely dangerous. So I had to sleep out in the open. It was a field of olive tree. I had to sleep under an olive tree from midnight until 2 when we again started moving. So the trip, it took us around, to be honest, like several hours, because we moved at 5 hours, so it took us 5 hours. We moved at 2, we arrived at 7 a.m. so it was 5 hours trip. We had to climb through a mountain, and then we had to climb down. It was so tiring. It looked like a hiking, it sounded like a hiking, and it could be a hiking trip, but sadly it's not a hiking, because at least at hiking you're enjoying the moment. You can rest. Here you cannot rest, you are not enjoying a moment. Sometimes you have to crawl because there would be cars looking at this point. For example, when I was when we were in the middle of the way, we were hearing that the Turkish forces, they were like talking to each other, they were shouting, and we could hear the dogs, and eventually the sound disappeared. So most likely they have captured a group of illegal travelers before us. This group were moving before us. They captured them and they moved them. And also we had to crawl in a field, and I still remember it until like now. Behind us there was a sniper. I could hear the sniper sound, and sometimes when I'm playing shooter game, when I use a sniper, it always reminds me of the sound that I was hearing that day. I was 100% sure it was a sniper. In fact, I could say it's a Magnum sniper, because the Magnum, if you in Counter-Strike or the PUBG, when I use the Magnum, it has the same sound. I heard that, so it was a sniper, Magnum sniper. So the dangerous, as I said, it was really hard, and the hardest part, it was crossing what we call it the road. So there is road which is running equal to the border, and crossing it's the most dangerous. So as I said, that that road, it goes directly by the border, used by the patrols, the border guard patrols, to control the illegal traveling. So after I passed it, I've arrived to some kind of also field in Turkish side. I have waited until sunset, and from sunset there was cars. They were picking us in points. So there was a car from one point to another, and from one point to another. And it's notable to say that everything there, it's always dangerous, because there is also the fraud. So I was traveling with a woman, traveling with 3 of her daughters. 2 were like an adult and 1 child. So when they had a problem, when they want to get the drive from the field until the meeting point where there is some guy will pick them up, a relative of them will pick them up, they agreed that at the beginning they agreed with the smuggler that it is included with the price they pay. So they have to pay $1,500 each for each, and the price was including that the traveling. But it appeared that the smuggler was lying on them, and they had to pay again for the car that they for the pickup to the point where the relative will pick them up. For me, I also had to pay, but I've already know that I have to pay, so I was already prepared. So I took a car which put me next to the Antakya city, where my friend came and picked me up. And here where I left, I was living my entire period in Turkey. So I was living in Turkey as a refugee, and situation was extremely horrible. So the first thing that Antakya, or the province, the entire province is called Hatay, and their capital is Antakya. They were not providing refugee resident permit, which we call it at that point, we call it kimlik. It means that ID, the kimlik mean ID, and the Hatay was not providing it. So I had to take it from Adana, and always have to also travel smuggling, using a smuggler to smuggle me into Adana, because it's not allowed to travel from one province to another without permission. So that's one of the horrible situations. So let's say I have a friend living in Antakya, and I am living in Adana. I have to go and get permission to travel. Also, when I was doing my visa for to come to Hungary. I was living at this point in Antakya, so I had to travel smuggling to Adana. From Adana, I get permission to travel to Ankara, where to get my paper. So it was always hard for me, and we also, the problem, we have to pay a lot for it. We have to pay extra, so they won't say anything or they accept to take you. So it was always dangerous. And on the road from Adana to Ankara, there was a checkpoint. There is a policeman who came, who checked my ID and also checked for a permission. So sometimes it's also dangerous that the police might stop you. And it's really sad because the situation of Syria is already horrible. And to see that all government around the world making it even more horrible and more difficult. So the thing is, when I was living in Antakya, the Turkish government, they do not provide anything. They do not provide accommodation. They do not provide you with like monthly salary. They only provide health insurance. So in order to sustain my living cost, I had to work. I was working in first I started working in a factory which manufactured beds and mattresses, and I was getting around $250 per month, which was hardly enough. So, and then later on to move to work as a porter, like carrying heavy stuff, and the work was 11 hours per day and 6 hours per week. Sorry, 6 days per week. So I had to work from Monday until Saturday, 11 hours a day. I only had Sunday as a free, which I spent it always in sleeping because I was extremely tired. So that's the average situation there. And also a lot of Turkish people, they are, how to say, they are disgusted with the Syrian presence in Turkey. So we have also this difficulty that we are mistreated by the Turkish. For me, the Turkish people, they were really, how to say, friendly. They were friendly toward me, but not toward everyone. And it's appeared that it's also based on the look. So if you're wearing like a good clothes or a decent clothes, or like according to fashion, and your appearance look like moderate, they would be friendly. But other than that, they were extremely rude or extremely unfriendly. So it's really horrible situation. But luckily for me, I applied to the scholarship while I was in Turkey, and I got the scholarship. But a lot of people did not get this chance. So for example, one of my roommates is my best friend, and really feeling sad for him because he's also graduate from university. He had a law degree, and he was extremely energetic, enthusiastic, and he used to work in Syria, and he had a really, how to say, like successful career and comfortable life. But sadly, he was called to the army, and he don't want to serve in the army because first of all, it's dangerous and it's against his values to fight against other Syrians, even though if they are on the opposite side. So he decided to go. A lot of people in Turkey, a lot of refugees, they are escaping either the war because their house were destroyed, or they're escaping the economical situation, or escaping the army. They don't want to serve in the army, not because they are afraid or because they are coward, but they don't want to fight on their own land. They would say like, I would go and fight if we are fighting an enemy, like an external enemy, but fighting against each other, it's wrong and we should not do it. So that's why there are a lot. And a lot of people in Turkey, they always say that about Syria, that they are coward and they run the war. It's not that we are coward, but we don't want to fight each other. We don't want to kill each other. So that's why we run. So later on, like before, some Syrians were lucky enough to travel illegally from Turkey to Europe, and now most of them, they are like spread in Europe, in Germany or in Sweden and or some other European country. But not everyone is lucky enough to have that. And even the road, so I never had to experience the traveling, but my friends, several friends, they had to experience. And the road from Turkey to Europe, it's extremely dangerous. So the beginning, the problem is you have to travel, you have to cross this sea into the Greek part, and in the road a lot of people, they may get drowned. And here I'm talking about children, women, men, old people, they are drowned, and they take this dangerous journey because their other choices are horrible. All of the other choices are horrible. And in the road also, it's also not safe. So they have to cross here, either they have to cross from Greek to Germany by like legal way, or have to travel through the land. And one notable thing I have to say, even it saddened me to say it, but I have to say it about Hungary, that there was, it's also, you can find it still online, you can find it on internet. There was a video when Syrians were crossing, and there was a reporter like filming the way, and there was one guy who was running with his daughter, and that reporter, she put her feet in front of him so he could triple on the way. And I don't know what happened later. I did not follow up what happened to the reporter, but it also reflects how the people are reacting. They were extremely racist towards Syrian. In fact, we are not nomads, we are not barbaric people, we are civilized, but we had to take this journey because we did not had any choice. Some of the people, they lost their houses, they don't have anything. Even if they want to return to their country, they don't have anything. It's easy to imagine it, that imagine that you go out of your house to, let's say, to purchase maybe a bag of chips, you come back, you won't find a house. Your house is already gone, it was destroyed. But the only difference is that in Syria they don't have ships, they don't have that pack of ships because they don't have anything. They hardly have a bread to eat. So that's the difference in the situation in Syria. It's horrible. And the thing is that sadly we don't see any clear end to it. We only hope that the world community will react to it, will help to solve it, but we don't see any solve, because the thing is getting more and more complicated, that even Syrians sometimes they cannot fully explain the situation in Syria because it's so much complicated. I only hope and urge the people, at least in Europe, to how to say, to more like provide easier way to take maybe some refugee from camps in Turkey to here, to take some refugee from other country like in Lebanon, in Jordan. You can find some refugee. I hope the European country, they can take them. And trust me, the Syrian people are not lazy people. If you ask any Syrian, what is your dream? In fact, if you ask me now, what is my dream? It would be easy. I would tell you, I want to work here in Europe to collect a lot of money, or as much money as I can, and go back to my country and invest. We are people who like to invest. We invest a lot. In fact, a huge number. There was around 3 million investment in Turkey by Syrian. We like to invest a lot. We work. We don't like to stay jobless. For example, my friend in Germany, he had to work in the black market because he's not allowed to work, so he had to work in the black market. And the thing is, he was not working because he needed the money, but he was bored of sitting without work. For us Syrian, we don't like to sit without work. We like to work. Even here now, I am working in KFC and I am studying. For me, it's really at the beginning, at the first semester, I was only relying on the scholarship, but decided that it was really boring for me. I had free time a lot. I had more free time than I needed, and decided I want to do something productive. So I decided to work in KFC. And also while working, I also run a group for Arab students who want to come and study in Hungary. Give them, how to say, maybe promote study in Hungary. I promote study, I promote the scholarship, and also answer their question, or provide them with information about studying in Hungary. I also promote the university in around Hungary. I promote the university here. So every one of us, when we come, the foreigners, we are promoting the country, promoting Hungary to the other people. So a lot of my friends, their parents came, and in that case, this is also increasing the touristic income of Hungary. So we are, how to say, we are not here as a burden, but rather as an income. For example, I am working and also I'm paying my taxes, like any Hungarian who are working with me, like any foreigner who are working with me. We are paying taxes, and we share the same problem with the Hungarian. We share the same difficulties, and we share their happiness. So we are not burdened, and it really hurt us when we are looked on as a burden. We are not like that. We are working people. We pay our taxes. We follow the rules. We are doing our best to be hospitable, to to be good, to be friendly toward others. So I hope that the European communities and all communities will look differently towards Syrian and toward other foreigners. And there is like people like in Iraq, I also know how they are suffering. Iraq also suffering, and also there is a lot of countries that are suffering, like Afghanistan, like Somalia and African countries. So I hope that people of European, like, how to say, feeling more sympathetic toward them, because they are here against their will. And if we look at, in fact, all of this country at some point they were colonized by European. So what we are suffering now, it's what Europe has left for us. They have taken all of the things that we had, and sometimes we look at our own natural resources as a curse. Why? Because these natural resources that it should be blessing for us, it only give us in war, poverty, and a lot of problems, dictatorship, and all under the supervision of what we call now free world and powers in politics and in our life.